In our quest for adventure and looking for new areas to explore during the pandemic, we are in the West Kootenays in British Columbia looking for some new paths to ride. We'd heard about the rail trails in this area and were curious about them, wondering if they would be rideable. But getting any detailed information about them wasn't easy. We did learn that the Nakusp and Slocan Railway ran between Nakusp and Three Forks, which is just east of New Denver. The section of that line between Three Forks and a little place called Roseberry, just to the north of New Denver, is today known as the Galena Trail. And this is a well-maintained greenway closed to motorized traffic. The section north of Roseberry to Nakusp is known as the N&S Rail Trail, and it seems that this section might not be as well maintained or publicised, and by some accounts there are sections that are overgrown. On Google Maps, if you turn on the layer for cycle routes, you will actually see a route marked the whole way from near Three Forks to Nakusp. The big question is, how much of it is rideable? Well, one way to find out is just to hop on the bikes. Finally, after many days of rain and grey skies, we woke up to good weather on September 20th. So Tanis and I decided to set off and explore the short section of the Galena Trail that goes east of New Denver towards Three Forks. We left Frank at the lake trying out his new fishing rod. On a map of New Denver, we had seen that there was a trail along Carpenter Creek leading from the town site that seemed like it would connect with the Galena Trail. That route worked out quite well, although some parts of it are rough and more suited to a mountain bike. There is eventually, though, a very steep ascent that we had to push the bikes up in order to get up to the Galena Trail, which is located way above the creek.
Okay, we sure didn't pick the easiest access path to the Galena Trail, but it was very interesting and pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll carry on towards Three Forks, see what happens. We are officially on the Galena Trail, southbound from New Denver.
We already knew from various reports that we wouldn't be able to get the whole way to the end of the trail at Three Forks, as the cable car normally used to cross Carpenter Creek at a location known as Alamo siding is out of commission due to spring flood damage back in 2020. Here at this location on the other side of the river, Alamo was a CPR siding and a mining centre with a concentrator, hydroelectric plant and associated support businesses and residences. Today hardly anything remains of this once thriving centre. You certainly get a real sense of the history attached to this railway, especially when you see these old artefacts from the tracks and old trestle bridge remains and railway ties.
Here we are again, our intersection from before.
On the way back, we rode the trail the whole way to where it crosses Highway 31A and cycled down the highway into New Denver.
Okay. Yep, better be careful here. Beautiful valley.
The whole section is only about 5 kilometers, but the surface is excellent. It's very well maintained and the grade is very gentle. It would be suitable really to ride with any kind of bike. The following day we packed up our gear and set off to explore the next part of the Galena Trail north of New Denver. We're going to do it bikepacking style so we can camp along the way. And we hope to continue north on towards Nakusp on the NNS Trail. The way the Nakusp and Slocan Railway came about is very interesting. This area in the foothills of the Selkirk Mountains became known as the Silvery Slocan back in the 1890s when silver ore was discovered. A lot of the mines were centered around the town of Sandon, and this became the hub of mining activity. Sandon at its peak in 1899 had a population of 5,000. It was a wild place with saloons and a casino and brothels, but it stood out in its day because it was the first town in BC to have a hydroelectricity system. The Silversmith Powerhouse was, in fact, the first hydroelectric plant in Western Canada. Today, the almost ghost town of Sandon has just a few residents, has a museum, and you can even tour the hydro power station, which is still running. We did check it out earlier in our trip. Immediately after the first discovery of silver ore in 1891, the race was on to bring a railway into the area to take advantage of this boom. CP Rail was the first to do so, starting construction in 1892 of a line between Three Forks, which is down the valley from Sandon, to Nakusp, where it would connect with its already running steamboat service up Arrow Lake to Revelstoke, thus connecting it with CP's main railway line. That line was completed in 1894. Later, an extension up the hill to Sandon was completed by 1895. This section had a steeper grade of 4.5%, which was pretty steep. About the same time, the American competition Great Northern Railway started building a narrow gauge line from Caslow to Sandon, the KNS line, which would connect with Kootenay Lake and steamboats down to Nelson to the Great Northern Rail network going south of the border. That opened in 1895. Apparently there were some very violent confrontations between the two rival companies, but both rail systems were running simultaneously to Sandon during the early heyday. The N and S line bypassed New Denver actually, but nearby Roseberry, just to the north, had a station which connected with a ferry that went south to Slocan City and then on to the Columbia and Kootenay Railway. Over the years, demand for the rail declined, and by the 60s and 70s, the train still ran a few times a week, transporting poles and cedar shakes from Nakusp mills. The last train ran carrying wood poles in December of 1988. The rails were finally removed in 1989. Okay, enough about the history. Back to the ride. We're on the bikes heading north out of New Denver on Highway 6 to where the Galena Trail crosses the highway, where we'll join the path by turning left into the forest.
New Denver to Roseberry, just at the beginning.
just ridden the few kilometres from New Denver north to where we are now at Roseberry, but it's very pretty here along Slocan Lake, and I think we're almost at the north end of it now. This is Roseberry Public Beach, at the north end of the Galena Trail. North of Roseberry, we're no longer on the Galena Trail, but there's still another 8 kilometres of beautiful lakeshore riding. Unlike the Galena Trail, where motorised vehicles are prohibited, on this section we may encounter ATVs or other motorised vehicles. Look at this lovely little camp spot we found 15 kilometres north of New Denver, just along the trail. This part of the trail was a little sketchy. I think we're back on the trail now. We're trying to find the route that follows Bonanza Creek. Having left Slocan Lake behind us a couple of kilometres ago. Okay, we turned around. That one didn't seem to look very promising. Deadfall ahead. So I think if we stay on this road, it will follow Bonanza Creek. Back again. That road just
went to a private house with a beautiful view. So we have to backtrack now. So maybe this is what happens if you trespass here. So we finally figured out the route. You had to turn right at the quarry back there. Rather, you had to turn left instead of right. Anyway, we lost a bit of time, but that's okay.
This was the first point where we got a little bit lost. So after leaving the lake behind, shortly after that you approach the community of hills. You reach a gravel pit. So make sure you keep left at the gravel pit on the track that seems to be heading into the forest. If you keep right, you'll end up on a paved road going through the residential area, and that is not the right way.
What? There's some bear poop. No doubt about that, but it's not fresh. So we have about 6 kilometers to go to get to the intersection with the highway near the beginning of Summit Lake. And it must be about 5 o'clock now. We've lost our sun. It's much cooler. The trail is still good. Okay, I think you got through it. This has been the only part where it's really deteriorated quite a bit.
Yeah, no, we've been good. We've been lucky so far.
Yeah. We have come to the end of the road. Yep. Even your rubber boots won't help you here, Tanis.
Sure won't.
So I think our only option is to go back and try the new trail that they're building. Maybe it skirts all this. Okay, so we doubled back where the road came to an end in the swamp, and we're taking this section now. Which was under construction, or is under construction, so we didn't think it was ready for us. Open now for pedal bikes and foot traffic only. Good. There's hope. This is good because there is no road access unless we double back and go back about 7k. So let's see where this goes. We're about 5k from Summit Lake, which is our goal for camping tonight. So close yet so far.
So it seems the beavers have reclaimed this section of the rail trail. They have dammed up various sections of the stream and made this area completely impassable. We had seen a little ways back this brand new trail leading off to the right, being built by the Valhalla Nordic Ski Club. It goes for a couple of kilometres and is an excellent bypass of all this marsh that was a lifesaver for us.
Okay, we're back on the rail trail. That was awesome. That new section completely bypassed all the marsh and water. Wow, beautiful bit of trail.
It is, yes.
Thank you to whoever built that. Yeah. $26 per camping party.
Eight o'clock in the morning on Summit Lake. And ready for breakfast.
Today we're going to leave our camp set up here and attempt to ride to Nakusp and back. We'll rejoin the trail just at the northwest end of the lake.
This is the beginning of the route from Summit Lake to Nakusp. This is a bit of a detour around some private property. Well, that trail was a dead end, private property, so back up we go. Well, we're back on the rail trail. We had a diversion there of about 1 kilometre through very rough track in the forest.
That was actually a signed detour around some private property. At first we were dubious about whether it would take us through, and it was quite rough at first. But sure enough, it did spit us out back onto the rail grade after about 1 kilometre. And you'll know if you've turned left too soon down off the trail because you'll end up back in the private property. Just keep going and you will get through. And if you don't have rugged tyres on your bike and you want to completely avoid this section, we did find out that there's a nice little trail access a little farther on. It would be about 2.9 kilometres north of the entrance to Summit Lake Provincial Park.
This is what the road has been like now for the last, 5k, just a easy forestry road that's following the rail trail, but very straightforward.
So the trail was like that the whole way to the outskirts of Nakusp. It's definitely open to motorised traffic, and we saw one parked truck, but we didn't meet another soul the whole way. Definitely not as interesting as the part south of Summit Lake, but definitely still worth riding.
We just crossed the highway now. We're 2 kilometers from Nakusp.
And here we go again. My crew on the trail. Couple, maybe less than 2 kilometers from Nakusp. Maybe sunny side up, harsh browns. Wow, yum yum. We came from that direction, from the summit lake.
So we're very anxious to get into the village now. Tanis and Frank are drooling over eggs Benedict, and we're all dying for our second breakfast.
This is the first time we've seen a revolving beetle.
Did you rent a club or you have to bring your own?
So although here we're less than 2 kilometers from the village if you take the highway, the rail trail takes a much more circuitous route. It's about 5 kilometers into town, and you end up at a really nice viewpoint overlooking the village and Arrow Lake.
We're not sure if we'll be able to get through here, but we're going to try. No access permitted. Does that apply to us?
We're only like 300 meters from the road.
Frank doesn't seem to mind the signage. We will.
Okay.
Yep. So the trail really is washed out here, and there's a little path around it. We could get through this one, but Frank said that there's a worse one ahead. So we're going back to find another route.
Well, it's too bad there wasn't a sign earlier to warn of the upcoming trail closure. What we should have done was exited at the golf course road, or there's one other little road that the trail crosses where you could probably exit. The only upside of that detour was that we saw a mushroom that we hadn't seen before.
This is our attempt to find a way out after coming on that trail closure, and well, if nothing else, it's very scenic. This is where we've ended up. We'll get there.
Okay, so Google Maps showed that there was some kind of a track that seemed like it would connect down to Highway 6, and yours truly insisted that we try it. We got there, but I wouldn't recommend it. It was very rough, and it went down through a quarry or a gravel pit. So we did find our excellent brunch and coffee at Hoss and Jill's Bistro in Nakusp. And after a little look around the town, we set off to ride home to the campground, much wiser this time, taking the steep road and the highway back up to the golf course.
heading out of Nakusp after a great meal at the bistro. Back to our temporary home. Hey. It's 11:15. We're leaving Summit Lake Campground.
This is a backside of Summit Lake. The morning was a little bit foggy.
This is a wet section along the Summit Lake section. Candice is getting through okay so far. Hey! Your feet didn't even get all that wet. This was our beautiful lunch spot by the lake. That was a great ride back today from Summit Lake, 39 kilometers. Beautiful, especially the part along Slocan Lake. Absolutely gorgeous.
Ba
So now we know that yes, you can definitely ride your bike from New Denver to Nakusp. There are just a few things to be aware of. Remember to keep left when you get up past the lake at the gravel pit. 5 kilometers south of Summit Lake where you hit the marsh. Don't forget to watch for the new trail heading off to the right. And north of Summit Lake, there's that private property diversion to the right. You'll want to completely avoid the loopy section of the Nakusp trail where it's all washed out. Get off the trail at the golf course. And the few sections where there is standing water, which was probably worse when we did the trail because there had just been a lot of rain. And since the ride, we've learned that some reconstruction work is planned for the marsh around Summit Lake, as well as a tender has been awarded to a company to repair the cable car on the Galena Trail. So by 2022, the trail network should be even better.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da.